I recently tried out the Workchamp XL to see just how good it is. Now, I'm a big fan of Victorinox, but my multi-tool of preference is my Leatherman Surge. But could it be that the Workchamp XL is as good and as useful as the Surge? That's what I wanted to find out. So first, let's go over the specifications of the Workchamp XL, tools included, and some of the functions. Then we can conclude if the Workchamp XL is as good or not as a Leatherman Surge. The Victorinox Workchamp XL comes with 30 tools. So right off the bat, the Workchamp already has more tools, but are they just as useful? That's something to consider as well. The dimensions of the Workchamp XL are height 1.6 inches, length 4.4 inches, and width 1.3 inches. The weight comes in at 12 ounces. So this isn't a lightweight multi-tool at all, similar to the Surge, which comes in slightly heavier at 12.5 ounces. Now this comes in the color red. It isn't a shiny red though, it's a matte red, but it still looks gorgeous. The knife comes with a slide lock mechanism. And I actually have something I want to mention about the slide lock mechanism, but more on that in a moment. You get your large blade, which always can be useful for multiple purposes, whether it's used for cutting rope, opening a box, or for cutting an apple, or anything else you can think of. Just make sure you clean it before or after every use, if you'll be using it for cutting food. The knife obviously locks in place and is unlocked by the slide lock. The only thing I see that is a slight problem for me is that the blade is all the way to the right side. It would have been nice for it to be more centered, but it's probably just a matter of getting used to it though. I may be overthinking it. Let me know if you agree with me or not. The pliers always come in handy to grip things like wires or small screws and bolts. If your intentions are to grip large bolts, or if you're going to try to bend thick wires, I wouldn't really recommend these because they're too small. And what I mean by small, I mean everything on it. The problem with it is not only the grip of the bolt or wire with the small plier head, but you also need to put some strength into it. And for that, you need multiple fingers. On these plier handles, you can only fit 2 fingers, 3 if you have skinny fingers. But at that point, it becomes uncomfortable to use. Based on the pictures of the Victorinox manual, you're supposed to use your thumb on the handle. But I can see how that can also become a problem because you can only put on so much pressure with your thumb until it starts to bother you. So for larger tasks, you will need larger pliers, something similar to the Surge. But still, for small wires or small bolts and screws, this can be useful. The wire cutters on this, just like the pliers, are small. It definitely can be useful for small wires, but don't expect it to replace some real wire cutters that have different gauge sizes. But for small wires, this could be useful. The wire crimping tool, as always, can come in handy to crimp some wires for small electronics as well, or any other type of crimpers that fit in the slot. The Phillips screwdriver is a tool that is always convenient to have on a multi-tool, as we all know that it will get you out of a bind when you need one, whether it's to unscrew a remote control or any other screws like on appliances. So definitely a must-have. Next we have the belt cutter, which has several sharp teeth, which can obviously be used for other purposes as well. I'm not sure if this should have been called instead just a serrated blade, but regardless of what it's called, this is a very useful tool. I just would think though that if you added a belt cutter to this tool, would it have been convenient to have added a glass breaker too? Let me know what you think in the comments. Talking about useful tools, the number one tool I usually like to have on my multi-tools is a pair of good scissors, as these always come in handy, whether it's to cut paper, plastic, you name it. A pair of small scissors on hand will always be useful, especially if they're very sharp, and we all know that Victorinox makes some pretty good ones. Next we have a metal saw that can cut through some small bolts or screws. Nothing too thick, as you'll have to put in a lot of work going back and forth. I'm sure you could still cut through thick bolts too though, but you're gonna get a workout. But for small metal objects, it'll cut through them and get the job done. And if you look to the sides of the metal saw, you will see 2 more tools on it. On one side, you'll have your metal file to smoothen out some metal edges, and once you're done using the metal file, you can turn it to the other side and use the nail file to smoothen your nails while you're at it. Next, we have the wood saw, which has some extremely sharp teeth. We know that a wood saw always comes in handy as well, whether it's to cut some branches or cutting other small pieces of wood like wood shims or wood dowels. This is another must-have tool. The next tool here is the hoof cleaner. Unfortunately, I don't have a horse to show you how it works, but I'm sure some people have used it and it's been an important tool to have in their multi-tool. But yes, this Workchamp XL also has a hoof cleaner, which is something you don't see in a lot of the multi-tools. The clip point blade is a second blade on the Workchamp XL. As we know, the point blade makes it easier to puncture through objects. Plus, having 2 blades is always better than having just one. Now here is where I wanted to actually add the point I had on the slide lock mechanism. The large blade is the one that locks with the slide lock, but when when it comes to this second blade, this one easily opens and closes without a lock at all. Maybe it would have been a good idea to add a liner lock to it. I just didn't understand that one. But let me know in the comment section, do you agree or disagree that this should have had some sort of lock? Or am I just overthinking it? Then we have our shackle opener, which also includes the marlin spike. I myself have never used this tool either, but I assume some people use it a lot, and that is why Victorinox included both of these tools in the Workchamp XL. Let me know in the comment section if you use this regularly on your Workchamp XL. Next, we have a can opener, which definitely comes in handy when you're out camping, hiking, whatever it is that you're doing outdoors or even indoors. Can opener is a must-have. Now, included on the tip of this can opener is a 3mm small screwdriver, which is also a tool that really comes in handy. Here's another tool I normally find myself using frequently, and that is the cap lifter. And included with the cap lifter is another screwdriver, and in this case it's a 6mm one. You can never go wrong with screwdrivers, always a great addition. Also included at the bottom of the cap lifter is a wire bender and wire stripper. Another good tool, especially if you're trying to bend and strip some electrical wires, but again, it is limited to certain gauge sizes. Next, we have another can and bottle opener, because well, you can never have too many. In this case, the can and bottle opener also include another tool that we can never have too many of, and that is a 5mm screwdriver at the tip. Next tool included is a long fine Phillips screwdriver, which is very well hidden as it lays beneath the scissors, so at first glance you can't see it, but once you lift the scissors you'll be able to reach in and pull this out. The good thing about the Phillips screwdriver is that it's long. That is a plus, and sometimes you need that extra length to reach a screw that may be in a deep hole, but this is a smaller Phillips head and is limited to the number of sizes of screws it can remove, but again, for an emergency it's quite helpful. The next tool is a corkscrew, which comes with another tool inside of it, and that is a mini screwdriver, which can be extremely useful to tighten some screws on your glasses or your watch. Next up is a reamer punch, which also includes the sewing eye. This is another tool I haven't used, but I'm sure it would come in handy when you're out camping and need to sew something up that just tore, like your tent or a camping bag. This would be ideal to help in a situation like that. Then we have a fine screwdriver, which is of size 2mm. Again, you can never have too many screwdrivers. With this now, you have 2, 3, 5, and 6mm screwdrivers on it. So a total of 4 flathead screwdrivers. 5 if you include the mini screwdriver as well. Next tool is a key ring, so you can hang your keys or a chain so you won't lose either your keys or your multi-tool. You also get your handy toothpick, and finally on the other side you get your tweezers, which we know also come in handy, especially for those crazy eyebrows. So now that we've reviewed the 30 tools on the Workchamp XL, we have to decide, is this better than the Surge? Based on preferences, I'm still inclined more towards the Leatherman Surge. Let me tell you why. First reason is because of the comfort of the tool. The Workchamp XL is too wide in my opinion. Even though the Surge is almost the same width, the big difference is how the tools open up. Like I had mentioned earlier, I feel that the main blade is too far to one side. I'm used to it being more centered. Another example would be the awl. I'm used to having it between my fingers, and with the Workchamp XL, sure, I can put it between my fingers, but I feel I just can't hold it comfortably. I feel my grip is just not right. It still works fine, but it's just not comfortable to grip. Maybe I'm just used to the grip of the Leatherman Surge. Maybe that could be it. Second reason is the additional not so useful tools. I didn't want to say useless because they are useful, just not so useful to me. And you could say this is more of a personal problem because I just don't have uses for some of the tools. For example, the cap lifter and bottle opener are almost identical. They perform similar tasks. Maybe one would have been enough. The hoof cleaner I'm not really using at all. So is the shackle opener and the marlin spike. I'll have to look up some additional uses for them. I think maybe other tools like a glass breaker, a magnifying glass, a windshield saw would have made great additions. They may not have been too useful on an everyday basis, but I think they would have had more use versus the ones I mentioned before. And in an emergency, they would have been great to have on the tool. Now, the Leatherman Surge may not have as many tools as the Workchamp XL, but the tools it does have, I find that they are, for the most part, all useful. And finally, a locking mechanism for all the tools would have been nice, especially because if this is sometimes uncomfortable to hold, then chances are the grip on it is sometimes just not right, and this can lead to an accident where a tool can close on you. So you want to avoid any type of accident with some sort of locking mechanism. The Leatherman Surge does lock all tools in place. But the Workchamp XL has plenty of pros as well. It's obviously extremely reliable because it's a Victorinox. It's very well built. Chances of it falling apart or breaking on you is slim. You have 2 knives. If one goes dull while you're out hiking, you can use the other. There are many pros you can think of. And like I said, it's probably just a matter of personal preference. I'm almost certain that I would have had the Workchamp XL as my EDC if I didn't have the Surge first, and chances are I would be used to it already. So even though I like the Workchamp XL, it is not going to replace my Leatherman Surge as my EDC. But let me know what you think. Do you carry the Workchamp XL as your daily EDC? If so, what tools do you find yourself using the most? Do you use the hoof cleaner? If you do, is it very useful for you, or did you find other uses for it? Let me know in the comment section. Based on quality, obviously the Workchamp XL is one of the best. You cannot go wrong with it. I think it just comes down to preference though. Some may prefer the Workchamp XL over the Surge. Others will not. Both tools are amazing tools. That is all I have for y'all today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.